thank you so much, Christy. This is such a fun group. I am thrilled to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You guys, though, this is a pretty small group, a medium-sized group. If you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. Feel free to pop stuff in the chat. I know everyone's getting started on their day, but we are going to have a lot of fun with it because I know we've all been on about 1,000 different leadership conversations, but for me, this is about being a parent and being a business leader, and how do we really bring that together? Because I found in my career that there were a lot of times that I was talking about parenting language in reference to my team. And I realized, am I really leading them, or am I just continuing to babysit them? So about me, Christy did a beautiful intro. I am still a sailing novice. I want to make sure that's clear. I started sailing and jumped into racing immediately as a very fast way to learn. I'm enthusiastic about it, but not particularly well equipped with it. But I am a marketing shark. I'm also the chapter president for the Association of Talent Development in Chicago. And I'm really on this mission to make leadership more accessible and approachable and achievable for everyone, because we've got a lot of leaders here, and you guys know best, it is not just the CEO that needs to be a good leader. Everyone has the ability to show up with leadership. And as I often joke, I am the pesky millennial coach, where I work a lot with the millennials and make sure that they're able to rise into those leadership positions. And it is the first time in my career I have ever admitted to being a millennial. So that's me leading with some vulnerability right there. But it's something I've definitely gotten to own. So when we talk about millennials, when we talk about leadership, when we talk about parenting, a movie came to mind for me. I don't know if you guys have seen Failure to Launch, this 2006 classic where we have Miss Sarah Jessica Parker and Matthew McConaughey. Who doesn't love that combo? Of a 35-year-old man living with his parents. He has no interest in leaving this very comfortable lifestyle that particularly his mother has made for him. I don't know if we've all seen that before. Raise a hand, keep on nodding. Yeah, it's hilarious. I'm convinced these guys saw the future for what was going to happen in our world, because as it turned out in 2001, we had a 17% of people 23 to 37 living with their parents. Zillow keeps really close tabs on these for obvious reason, but it has been steadily increasing since 2000. And in 2019, I mean, let's not even talk about post-pandemic world. 22% of people 23 to 37 are now living with their parents. It is a huge jump. There's a lot of the realities. This is more than just a failure to adult. There's challenges with student loans and wage and housing and recessions, not to mention some coddling parents that never really hurts the situation to get that double increase. But this failure to adult is often what gets blamed for it, and often what we look at when we look at younger generations and people moving in the professional industry. So I took a peek at adulting, right? And adulting is this informal term to describe behavior that's seen as reasonable and grown up, right? Anything that involves the mundane demands of independent professional living. It's to make someone behave like an adult. You can make your team grow up a little bit. Come on, guys, it's time to adult. Or someone could be very proud of their adulting behavior. And this has steadily been an increase on the rise, if you look at the Google search terms, since about 2013, when it started coming on the scenes. And just so we're all familiar with it, there's our friend's Failure to Launch, ahead of the trend, looking at adulting before it even happened. So I've got a couple of very fun examples of what it means to adult, in case you were wondering about it. So we've got buying 170 pieces of Halloween candy, all for yourself. Hashtag adulting. These are really fun Twitter. If you ever want to Google Twitter tweets about adulting. Steam ironed my curtains today. Someone finally set up some proper savings account out of their piggy bank. Hashtag adulting. I think this all qualifies as the mundane. More professionally, I love this. This morning, my husband was nervous about his coffee date with a colleague he's working closely with, but never actually met during this pandemic, right? Hashtag adulting. I'm meeting people in the real world. I'm making those business relationships. Apparently that needs an adulting name now. Or, office in the first time since April. Too dramatic. Someone is very excited about their sunglasses, I'm guessing, but they feel that they're adulting just because they made it into the office. This is my favorite one, millennials. I went to work all day and paid my bills. Hashtag adulting. Anyone feeling like this a little bit right now? You don't get a trophy for just doing the things that you need to do. But as it turns out, millennials are turning 40 this year. And so it's no longer just the person that's paying their bills. They're real adults now. I don't know if you guys have any hashtag adulting wins you want to share, but go ahead, pop them in the chat. We will make it a little interactive if you guys want to play along, but a couple of mine were, I came to work on time, hashtag adulting, right? That's feeling pretty good. I listened to feedback, didn't get defensive, hashtag adulting. The other one, as I was brainstorming, ran a meeting all by myself today. Hashtag adulting. Spoke in front of a bunch of brilliant CEOs. Hashtag adulting for my wins. If you do want to share any of your adulting wins, please feel free to. And we will all celebrate your mundane adulting activities. But as we are all adults now, and as our millennials are turning into adults, it really starts to beg the question. Oh, lost all of my chat. Sorry about that. Next slide. There we go.
I like what Shiana put in. I bought candy for the trick-or-treaters. Hashtag adulting.
I feel like the adulting is when you eat all the candy because you're like, I'm an adult now. I'm going to eat all the candy for the trick-or-treaters before they get to my house, or needed to buy more candy for trick-or-treaters because I ate it all, or my husband ate it all. In my case, I'm getting a lot of head nods. Clearly that's resonating. Thank you, Sheena, for sharing. But when I looked at, what does it really mean to grow up if we're just celebrating the mundane adulting tasks? And especially when it comes to our teams and those we lead around us and how we're showing up in the workplace, it's really time to show up like a grown-up. So I'm going to be real honest here. We all know, just so we're setting the stage, I am not a parent. I am not here to judge your parenting in any way, shape, or form. But I am here to take a quick peek at what your parenting looks like in the business environment. So I often found myself saying things like, I'm babysitting my team. Anyone else feel that way? No head nods. Are you sheltering your team a little bit? And you're protecting them from something. I've used a lot of this language myself. How about if your team looks for permission? Does anyone feel like they're playing parent for them? They're always like, oh, is this right? Is this right? Can I have permission to do this? You don't need permission. You're an adult now. We're all professionals here. How about taking off the training wheels? That's one of my favorite ones when I'm coaching someone up, or I used to, and I was like, okay, it's time to take off the training wheels. Let's put our big boy pants on and let's go and do this, right? And a lot of this parenting language feels really right. And it's comfortable because as we view our roles as managers and leaders, we feel responsible for our team. We often feel like it's our job to bring forth and raise them into maturity through care and education. And that's pretty much the definition of parenting. So Yoko had a brilliant TED Talk titled, Why Most Parenting Advice is Wrong. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to parent your kids, but I did love her brilliant perspective on trying to predict how your kid is going to turn out based off of your parenting is nearly impossible, right? You have parents shape their kids in so many different ways. You can have two different kids and parent them the exact same, and they will turn out totally different. My brother and I are prime examples of that. But what I love about this quote, parents, stop blaming yourself as if you're in control of your child's path. You have influence, but you don't have control. As the second half goes, is kids, stop blaming your parents because you're not defined by them. And this applies so well to our professional environments, because how you shape your employees, how you lead your employees has influence. I think we all know when we don't have control over our team, but also our team members, hey guys, what we do doesn't define you either. And you've got to step up. And I call that self-leadership on how they want to contribute to the organization. So no one is defined by each other, but we do have a very important relationship that we need to identify. So I looked at parenting styles to really kick us into the hearty parenting factors. And like anything good, we've got an X and a Y axis, and vertically on our Y axis, yes, I remember my math, we've got how demanding or yielding you are. This is how much accountability you want to show for your kids, or how much you require from them. On the X axis, we've got how connected you are to them, right? How responsive are you? How connected, how caring, to highly responsive, highly engaged. And so out of this, we have 4 brilliant parenting styles. Our first one is the authoritarian parent, right? This is someone that is very demanding, super not responsive, does not care, very strict, very controlling. If any of you guys are fans of that 70s show, this is Red. This is Red to a T, right? He does not care how anyone feels. He is super demanding. If you cross anything, if you fall out of bounds, there will be punishment and hell to pay for. Below that, we've got someone that is super yielding, right? No requirements from their kids and completely not responsive. We call this the neglectful parent, right? They demand nothing, they give nothing, totally checked out. I am based out of Chicago and a huge fan of Shameless. So if you guys have seen Shameless, this is Frank Gallagher, right? Completely neglectful parent. Totally not included in that, right? Next, going around the horn, we've got yielding and highly responsive, right? So they care a lot about their kids. They're emotionally invested. They're very connected to them, but they don't have a lot of requirements for them. This is your permissive parent. They avoid confrontation. They want to be everybody's friend. For my modern family friends, this is Phil Dunphy, right? Nobody wants to be friends with their kids as much as Phil Dunphy does. Doesn't mean any of these parenting styles are wrong. Probably don't model yourself after Frank Gallagher for a multitude of reasons, but they're all different styles that show up. And so finally, we've got our authoritative parent. So we're assertive, we're not restrictive, we're still connected to them, but we have a high level of expectation for our kids. And that's your Rainbow from Blackish, right? Does the best she can to really support her kids, have a lot of high standards, talk through how they're feeling, what's going on in them. So moving on from this, when we look at these 4 different parenting styles, and you guys can maybe reflect back to your own childhood, or if your kids just failed a math test, how would each parent respond to it? So your authoritarian parent, you are grounded, right? There is no, you failed a math test, boom, super disciplinary. If you've got a neglectful parent, it's the whatever. What test? Did you have a test today? They don't even know that it's hitting the radar, right? They don't care if you failed, passed, whatever. I love Bill's just like laughing, like, yes, all of this is relating to me. If you're a permissive parent, right? So you're super connected to them, but you don't have high expectations. It was probably the teacher's fault. You know, maybe here's a trophy for trying. Let's go out for ice cream. You did your best. And you're an authoritative parent. You really want those natural consequences to occur, but you want to use those opportunities to help reflect and learn. So it's, hey, you failed it. Why did you fail it? What are we going to do next time? How are we going to study better? What are we going to do to make up for it? All 4 parenting styles show up just with kids as much as it does professionally. So looking at the parenting styles, I'd love to hear if you want to pop it in the chat, if you just want to start head nodding where you're like, yes, that's totally me. And we show up in different ways in different relationships. So the first one is with your kids, right? We all have, or nieces, nephews, family, friends, kids. We all know what type of a parenting style we play. I don't have kids, but I do know my niece and nephew. I am so definitely permissive, right? I am totally permissive as well. I'm like, you guys can do no wrong. I'm just here to be your friend. There's times when I'll definitely get a little authoritative because they think they can walk all over me. Boom, exact opposite of the quadrant, right? You cannot walk all over me. That's my hard and fast line. Have some guidelines there. How about with your pets? And this one for me, like, the pet parents that are very authoritative, right? They're so focused on the disciplinary for their pets. You had the neglectful pet parents that have no idea. You go to a dog park and their dog is like running around creating havoc and the pet parent doesn't even care. You have the super permissive, which is why my dog now sleeps in the bed with me. All 50 pounds of her. She didn't start that. Definitely authoritative and permissive with my kids. Thanks, Sheena, for sharing. But you show up differently, and these styles really start to resonate in different relationships that you have. And then finally, with your teams, I'm sure you guys are all secretly thinking, what style am I showing up with my teams? What style is my boss, if you do have a boss? And how are you responding to these different situations and reacting based off of these different styles? So it really begs the question of what types of employees are you raising? If these parenting styles have a direct or indirect, we'll say, relationship with the types of kids that you raise, I want to take a quick second to dive into each one of the parenting styles and what type of kids it really starts to bring up and show. So if you are an authoritarian parent, we know you're demanding and you're low responsiveness. You have that lower connection to them. So you're not looking for the feedback or input from your kid. You're always beating themselves. They're always beating themselves up. They feel like they can never measure up. They start to lack confidence. And those children from authoritative parents tend to be a little bit more timid. They sometimes have lower self-esteem, less spontaneity. If you look at that 70s show, that is definitely Eric, right? Eric has absolutely no self-esteem. Thank God for Donna. So when I look at this from a perspective of what is your team doing, are they looking for permission? Do you wish that they took more initiative for it? Do they perform well, but they never really realize their potential? For you, do you wish your team was more creative, independent? Do you wish they had a great idea once in a while, right? That spontaneity, that creativity, you might be killing with that leadership style. And so looking at what that shows up, that is actually the dictator leadership. And I'm sure we all have known and probably hated this person, but when you've got a dictator leader, it's totally the do as I say, this is what your marching orders are. It's a really big challenge for them to do delegation, to give people permission to fail, to give everyone independence, and that listening skills, that emotional intelligence aspect of it, kind of has fallen to the wayside a little bit. Anyone feel like they have some dictator leaders around them? Sometimes, definitely. I think Steve's got 2 of them, or that was just a peace sign, like the peace be with them. Yeah. It's tough, right? And they start creating these teams based off that leadership style. The teams will respond differently, and it'll start to quell some of these challenges. And you hear them say these things and wish that it was different without taking accountability for how they're showing up on it. On the flip side, we've also got our there we go, the neglectful parent. Sorry, every once in a while I click off to something that does not like that. So our neglectful parent, these are our Frank Gallaghers of the world. They have no accountability for the team. They are not very engaged with them. And when we see like this lifetime of neglect affecting the kids, they are the lost ones. Sometimes it shows up as if you're the 5th child in a family, right? Parents have done it all before. They've seen it. At this point, they're just a little bit disengaged, not necessarily as neglectful, we'll say, as the insane Frank Gallagher are, but these kids will often act out. They're looking for attention. Sometimes they become self-sufficient. They're really left on their own. And so the leadership style really lets the kids get away with stuff, or lets their team get away with stuff, because they don't care. They do whatever they are. They're uninvolved. in a certain aspect. So oftentimes your neglectful leader will be asking things like, what are they working on again? I don't know if you've ever felt like your manager or leader doesn't know what you're doing and you feel totally disengaged, right? It's almost neglectful. You're like, they have no idea the value I'm bringing. They have no idea how hard I'm working on stuff. They're not engaging with it. Do you wish that, they were supported or that you don't even know what they did? Sometimes this is where you'll see a lot of corporate challenges where people are asleep at the wheel. They're covering up other people's mistakes. They're not worried about it. Sometimes you get a lot of corporate challenge. There's a lot of misbehaving. People start acting out because there's no one there to support them or to lead them. And so the French term laissez-faire literally translates to let them do. So this is your laissez-faire leadership style for those neglectful parents. And sometimes people aren't ready for that leadership. They're not ready to step into it. They're not prepared. They don't know how to put those pieces together. Sometimes they're uncomfortable with it. Whatever it is, it's always important to know what type of a leader you're showing up and how you're showing up for your kids, for your team. So next up, we've got our permissive parent. I think a couple people said that they were a little permissive when it came to their kids. I definitely know I'm permissive with my pets. This is where you've got that low accountability, but you're super connected and responsive to your kids. And you want to be their friends. Often this will lead to more entitled kids. They don't want to take responsibility. They don't know how do they affect others. They're poor losers. They're not grateful or thankful. They feel like they already know everything, right? So when I started reading more and more about the permissive parents, this sounded more and more like the millennial generation. A lot of the complaints that people give, right? It's all about me. I had very permissive parents. Everybody gets a trophy. Really communicating openly and letting the kids decide for themselves. So if you're having struggles with some entitled team members, might be some of the permissive parenting that you're doing. So are you tired of spoon feeding them everything, right? You feel like you always have to set everything up for them. Are you tired of doing their homework for them? I don't know if you guys do your homework for your kids. I knew friends that their parents looked over their homework or proofed their papers or wrote their papers for them. That was not my parents. I don't know how that flew, but it happens, right? Do you clean up messes for them? You're always covering up some of those mistakes. You're taking care of them and coddling them, in fact. And so oftentimes this puts a lot more stress and pressure and responsibility onto the leader, onto the parent, than onto the team. And you are taking the brunt and the burden of all of their work without even knowing it, because you're not having that level of accountability for the rest of the team. So this is a little controversial, but I like to call this the servant style leader. And I know there's a lot of conversations about servant leadership. There's a lot of pros. I'm not saying don't be a servant leader in the positive way, but servant leadership taken out of context and out of hand is really when their main goal and responsibility is to provide service for their people. A servant leader focuses on them so much more than building up their accountability, right? Making sure that they're responsible for pieces. There's times when definitely you want to have a servant style leadership where you support and engage your team, but you can't do it at the detriment of their responsibility for it, of the job that they need to get done, because they still need to be held accountable for those pieces. So if you're feeling a little bit taken advantage of, a lot of permissive parents, a lot of permissive leaders feel that they're always getting taken advantage of by their team. They're working harder for it. So the challenge here is being less responsive and more accountable, more demanding of the team, because we all know that the team will rise the expectations that you set for them. And if you're setting that bar too low, they're going to go way above it. Someone is definitely laughing at that. Maybe they're feeling that they've set some bars too low and that their own bar is too high. And a lot of times parents will feel fear of pushback, right? So if you're afraid that you're going to get pushback from the team, oh, they're never going to be able to get it. It's creating that bigger vision, creating that motivation and inspiration so that the team has something aligned to, that they're excited, that they want to achieve those higher goals. So last, we've got our authoritative parent. This is where you're demanding, right? You have high accountability for them, but you also have a high connection with them. You're still very emotionally intelligent. You're connected with them. You care about them as individuals. And this is more of a collaborative parenting style, they call it. Kids know what's expected of them. They have the independence to achieve it. And this is where trust and psychological safety really starts to thrive. And people are comfortable coming to you for help, not solving their problems like a permissive parent, right? When they come to you to solve all the problems, they're looking for you to be the problem solver, but they're coming to you looking for that collaborative, how do we solve this challenge together? So this is more when you're saying things like, what do you suggest? What do you think? What do you need? Asking your team, what is it that they need, creates more of a coaching leadership style. Like Bill had like big head nods, like, yep, saw that one coming. These are very well-known parenting styles as well as well-known leadership styles. I'm not just like making up these names, just so you guys know, like they are already established. I am just connecting the dots to them together because they're really powerful. And a lot of people relate or focus or try to really achieve that coaching leadership style because it creates that culture of high performance. The characteristics are collaboration, empowerment. People are feeling fulfilled. They have high demands on them, but they're able to reach those goals. And that collaborative problem solving is really crucial for that success, as opposed to that command and control where you're not collaborating with them, right? You're just being that dictator, throwing out all of the requirements. So a lot of the managers with this style will help employees improve on their strengths, will give them new tasks to help stretch them, offering them that guidance and that constructive feedback. Constructive being important with that. And this is pretty similar to like a democratic leadership style. Not quite as collaborative, where a democratic leader is looking for everyone's opinion on something to make a decision. This is coaching other people into their potential. And then we also want to make sure that democratic doesn't go into that laissez-faire leadership style, right? Where you're abdicating the responsibility for something. So when I look at all of the different leadership styles, how your team is showing up, is anyone comfortable enough to start tossing in, what do you think represents your leadership? And maybe you started in one area and you've migrated to another. Do you feel that you're more the authoritative leader, the permissive leader, the neglectful one, or the authoritative one, that coaching one? Because looking at how your kids or your team, I'm going to just use those terms interchangeably, how the kids, how the team are showing up and what may be affecting them from your style, very powerful in what you need to do to change. And how you want to change their behavior is also how you want to change your behavior. So if it's serving you or not serving you is always the biggest question. Oh, I love it. Authoritative in some ways, permissive in others. I love those two, the dichotomy of those two, right? Anytime you go across a model, it's just like from one extreme to another. Completely permissive to a completely authoritative, opposite ends of the spectrum. When you have that super coaching into the laissez-faire and neglectful, it's really confusing for people to know how to respond or what they need to do or how they're going to show up for that situation when there's no consistency. So I love authoritative. Authoritative side also depends on the person. We know that a lot of this is child or person specific. Different people have different needs and have different things that they can control. I love it. Coaching and servant leader. I love that. Thanks for sharing, Richard. Authoritative leader and coaching. Vanessa has a lot of high accountability in her world, right? Totally accountable, helping them through the education, guiding them through empowerment and those tools towards goals. That is so coaching, right? That is where you're really caring about them and you're supporting them to be able to meet those goals. Anyone else finding that there's a difference between how you're coaching your team and how you're leading your team and how you're leading your kids? A little bit different. Sometimes it's the same. Coaching is the foundation, but use others based off what the situation calls for, and then bring it back into coaching. and I think everyone will agree a lot this year, that coaching style has really started to have the spotlight shined on it because of COVID, because of our need to be more empathetic, because of our need to connect more with the team. And a lot of that authoritative style is very traditional management leadership. I think there's been a huge shift in moving away from that real authoritative into a more collaborative and coaching environment. Obviously, we want to keep that accountability up. We're all business owners here. If nobody's accountable, if no one's doing anything, we've got a major issue in productivity. So if we do want to start shifting some of our coaching leadership styles, we have these two accesses and opportunities to really evolve. So the first is that yielding to demanding. And the question is how, if you are more permissive, if you are laissez-faire, I'm really see there's not a ton of neglectful leaders here, or any really, you guys all seem that you're not neglectful, so we're okay with that one. But if you are looking to move up to that more demanding, it's clarifying expectations. Sometimes people don't know what's expected of them. It's setting higher standards. If you always set that bar low, people won't rise above it. It's setting bigger goals and bigger vision and making sure that you're having that really clear, motivating, exciting thing that everyone's working towards and aligning on what it is. It's not just, hey, here's my vision, we're going to be a $50 billion company. It's why are people excited about that? What does that look like for them? How's that going to change? What's thrilling? How do they have a part to contribute to it? Because aligning on that bigger vision is always more motivational. And this is that push pull, right? You don't want to push people. Okay, let's force you, it's the end of the year, let's have bigger and better sales numbers just because we have to increase. It's what's bigger, what's more exciting about it? What's something that we can align on? How is that going to help them? How is that helping the organization and community that you've created? I do love the situational leadership model. I think there's always opportunities to adjust to that. So thanks, John, for tossing that in there. I'm going to say that people need different things at different times. I have no problem with that, just like your kids need different parenting styles for different situations. But I'm going to challenge that at the core, if you are too authoritative of a leader or a parent, or you're too much of a dictator, the problem statements that we talked about are still going to be a problem for you. They're not going to have the high self-esteem. They're not going to have the high accountability. They're not going to contribute creatively. So bringing out the best in everyone, I'm going to challenge there's not many times that a coaching leadership style, which does flex for different people and meeting them where they're at, is probably going to get the best results. And best results is subjective, obviously. You may want a different type of culture and organization, and that's totally up to you. So the more that we can have higher accountability for our team, the better they're going to perform and the less responsibility and burden we're taking for them, which everybody wants, right? Nobody wants to be feeling all the pressure and the weight of the world on their shoulders. On the flip side of that, we have that disconnected and connected side. And our axis here is really that emotional intelligence. It's the listening to people. It's asking them great questions. It's having a genuine concern. It's engaging with them. It's caring about them. It's the empathy. And again, 2020 pandemic special has really given us an opportunity to connect and engage differently. The expectation of how we connect or care about our team has shifted. It's opened up that opportunity to listen differently. And you see a lot of pull, and it's been happening for a while. It's definitely been happening with the millennial generation, where people expect someone to care. They expect someone to listen to them very differently. And the more connected you are, yes, it may feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it does strengthen that relationship. It does produce better results. Unfortunately, we're not robots yet. And so we all do have a certain amount of compassion and human element. I always joke, if you've got a people issue, you've got a leadership issue. If you've got a process issue, you've got a management issue. And the people issue has emotion attached to it, no matter what. because we're human, and that's part of the human experience. So the more that we can get comfortable with that and learn to lead with empathy, with caring about our team and that compassion, the better off our response is going to be from them. So our 4 parenting styles, we've got the demanding, the high accountability, the yielding, the low accountability, low response, disconnected, highly responsive, connected, authoritative, neglectful, permissive, and authoritative and authoritarian are our 4 categories here. I feel like I've beaten them to death a little bit. Any questions on those 4 categories before we jump into adding a couple extra leadership styles just for funsies? Everyone is like, nope, I got this. I know what I need to do with my kids. Again, not my intention, but if it works, please let me know. I'd love to think that I had an impact in that, raising the youths of tomorrow, but really focusing more right on your team and how your team's showing up and how you can show up for them. Because we all do want the best for our team. We all do want the best for our organization. And our leadership has a huge impact. We know leadership starts at the top. The culture is set by the leader. There's so much responsibility with it. It's hard not to feel that you're all empowered and you can just influence and taking that step back. So a couple other fun leadership styles, because I'm not big on just, oh, this is this leader archetype and this one. There's a lot of pieces at play. So I pulled in a couple extras, which was the autocratic leader. This is, again, that dictator. It's the do as I say. It is making decisions without taking input from the team. We talked about this one a lot, right? Employees are neither concerned or consulted prior to a change in direction. And I'm working with a financial institution, and they want to change their service model. And the service team's one side, the sales team's another side. Guess how much the sales team has been informed in that decision? Goose egg, right? Not at all. And they are terrified and scared and horrified that they're changing how their clients are being serviced. And it's just, okay, well, this is the new policy. Good luck. And how do they really voice those concerns in a way that they get heard? How do they get their voices and making sure that their creative input is considered by the organization so that they're not making a huge mistake? And too much of that dictator, autocratic leader will really quell the great ideas. A lot of consultants that don't even come up with ideas for companies, they just listen to what the team members say and repackage it in a way that senior leadership can hear it. So know that if there's a lot of autocratic leadership, if there's a lot of dictatorship leadership, there's a lot being hidden from you, from the team. And there's a lot of potential that's not being tapped and a lot of opportunity that will take some coaching and coaxing to get out of it. The other leadership style that I love on here is love that. I don't know why this keeps getting a little funky on me. Sorry, guys. We will just do it manually. Oh, nope. Surprise. Our next one is our pace setting leader. So the style of leadership says high standards for performance. They're obsessive about doing things better and faster, right? Move fast and break things. They are always asking the same question. They're asking more out of everyone. It can be difficult because it's that keep up style. You see this in a lot of startups. And if you're always setting that super high accountable piece, you're gonna get into burnout. Ready, fire, aim, right? Thank you, Richard. There's times for it, right? But if you are always on that ready, fire, aim, if you're always moving that quickly, it's really going to keep a pace that not everyone can keep up with it. And pushing your team members hard and never having that finish line. I always like to say, knowing what success looks like, knowing and being able to celebrate those pieces, that's what keeps the team engaged. And those pace setting leaders don't always care as much for the personal side, right? They're like, nope, we got a goal. We got to keep doing whatever it takes. Let's go. So that keep up is very popular with it. The authoritative, we talked a lot about this. This is the visionary leader. It's the follow me. How can we set that high accountability, that really clear vision, and get people to align to it? This is where, unlike the autocratic leader, you're really taking the time to explain the vision. You're taking time to build that connection and that alignment with it. So it's not just issuing the order, it's giving people a little bit of choice and latitude on how to achieve those common goals. We did talk about coaching. I moved that a little over to the connected side, right? Because you're really looking for that collaboration. You're really looking to harness the potential of the individual, to support them. You are setting high expectations, but it may be coming less from you and more from them. And focusing on people as the reservoir of talent to be developed. I love that. It's a little cheesy in a way, but really understanding that the potential of your team is there and how are you going to harness it. You could call that servant leadership, but focusing on how to bring out the best of the individual and unlocking that potential. Democratic leaders, so they're the ones that are always looking for everyone else's opinion. And I know we've all met these people before, right? How do you see it? What do you think? Let's take a vote. They're not having that really high accountability. They're not setting that vision. They're not aligning people to it. They want to lead by community, by committee. If you look at a lot of nonprofits, I'm on a board, it is mind-numbing to see how many people need to approve something, how nothing can get done because you need to have all this alignment. There is no vision. It gets squashed. And so making sure that they aren't avoiding the responsibility of the decision making and they're leaning into it. Because when you start to avoid that accountability for yourself, you're definitely moving down that yielding path. The servant leader, as we talked about, is the what do you need? And there's that fine line between coaching and servant. We're having that really high accountability for people will bring you into that coaching, knowing that they have that potential and that you are trying to get them to realize it and support them into that, as opposed to acquiescing to whatever their needs or demands are. And I talked with a business owner and we had to move our meeting because he's like, look, everyone's trying to steal my employees and I'm trying to steal everybody else's. I have given these millennials everything they want. They want more money. They want more titles. They want fear at work, whatever it is. They're just trying to serve it and they're not giving them that high level of accountability. They're not setting that mission. They're not giving them something that they can get excited about and align to. And then last but not least, our laissez-faire leaders. We know the people that are asleep at the wheel. We get frustrated by them. We act out whether it's passive aggressively, whether it is aggressively, there's a real challenge when someone's asleep. And that takes another really hard conversation of what is it that they want and getting them to realize some of their own potential and developing into that. So I'm going to leave this when in doubt, because these are a lot of different leadership styles. There's a lot of opportunities, but every single time it comes back to this one for me, which is when in doubt, children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them. Still a little early for me, guys, sorry. We all know do as I say, not as I do is not a very effective leadership, right? We all know that people will follow what you do, that you are setting the tone for the meeting, for the company, for the behavior. And every single time you have an opportunity to be the example. And that is where leadership shines. That is always the starting point of leadership. And it's a pretty good guiding light, right? If these are a lot of different pieces and there are so many different aspects in either parenting or leadership, knowing that you're setting a great example is a fail-safe way to be a better leader. So what I always like to ask is, when is it their turn to be leaders? Because we know we're leaders, we've got a team. How do we equip them and get them ready for that leadership and encourage them for those next steps? And I was getting a little meme heavy, but especially when you've got the team members that don't want to adult, you can't make them, right? Remembering that you can, I always love my grandfather used to say, lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? Parents can influence their team. They cannot control their team. And knowing that you are setting them for success, giving them the environment, leading by example is where you will allow and give the opportunity to build that leadership pipeline and see more leaders and give them the opportunity to show up like a leader. The 2 seconds, I know coaching is hard. I always like to joke, most managers and leaders don't know how to coach, don't have the patience to coach, or sometimes are the problem. I do offer coaching. Bill's nodding like, yep, that happens. I do work with individuals, teams, and I do have my Emerging Leader Experience program. That's a cohort-based opportunity to build up those self-leadership skills and to encourage people in that coaching environment so that they are asking their own questions. They are being more accountable and responsible for their actions. So I love to say leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. If you're looking to have more influence on your team, if you're looking for your team to have more influence on each other, their clients, their team, you need a little bit more leadership. My name is Megan Robinson. I am the owner of eLeader Experience. There is a bunch of lovely contact information. I would love to connect with anyone that wants to have a conversation. Again, I will not judge you on your parenting or your leadership styles for that matter, but I'd love to hear what you learned or some takeaways from this conversation. With that, Christy, I will go ahead and turn it back to you.
Your timing, perfect. Okay, what questions do we have? Anybody have a question or a comment?
I love comments.
Hey, Megan, Tito.
Hey, Tito.
Quick question. I know it was posted on the chat. How does this, perhaps the quadrants of leadership styles, merge or jive with the situational leadership approach?
I believe situational leadership is really adjusting to an individual's needs or perspective. I would look at that as more of a coaching approach, right? Especially when you're coaching, the coachee is driving that agenda. It's where their awareness is, it's what their needs are and their perspective. So the more that you're elevating those pieces, I would say it's more on that coaching side of things.
Cool. Thank you. Yes, it does.
I mean, I'm always about coaching. I'm all about coaching leadership styles as well. Definitely gets the best out of your team.
How about the appreciative leadership movement?
Tell me more about the appreciative leadership movement, Bill.
It's the one that Kenny talks about when she's at our boot camp.
Barbara Fredrickson, appreciative leadership. It's all about well, asking questions, and you mentioned that. So have you heard of Barbara Fredrickson and her appreciative leadership? I think it's called appreciative inquiry.
Inquiry, that's it.
Yeah.
Ooh, there you go. I go that on that super connected side, right? They are emotionally engaged. They are curious. I love leading with curiosity, and that's where you're asking the questions. I will say the coaching, great coaches don't have answers. They have great questions. And so again, I find a lot of these flavors of leadership really lean towards that. How are you supporting your team? How are you keeping them highly accountable? And that accountability comes from themselves. And it's raising that awareness. I'm getting a lot of head nods. So, right, it's raising that awareness. And I always talk about, that self-responsibility. It's, what do I need? Where am I at? And the more that you get that reflection piece and I'm going to hate this word, critical thinking doesn't happen anymore. No one is teaching critical thinking in college. They're looking for answers. They're not thinking critically. And being able to ask the right questions that start critical thinking that someone can't give an answer to immediately is difficult. It's uncomfortable for the person being asked the question, but that's where the growth happens. And I think,
Megan, that is a super important point. It's people aren't critically thinking. And, I can't tell you how many clients that I've talked to that have said, the new people coming in, they're looking to follow a recipe. They're not thinking on their own. And Andrew has a question.
So yeah, Megan, I really appreciate what you shared, and actually I've thought for many, many years about how parenting has changed me as a leader at work. But there's one major difference I don't think that got talked about too much was, at work, even if you don't, lot it over people, there's and even an unspoken understanding that, hey, their performance reviews are your responsibilities. Their pay is coming from you. They have some obligations that are automatically inherent there. Whereas with children, if you say like, I'll take your allowance away, or you can't live under my house or on my roof if you behave that way, it comes across very coercive, manipulative, and just bad. Whereas at work, you can't get away from it, really. It's there.
Well, I love that. It's if you're still holding it over people's heads like that, I'm going to say you're probably not being a really effective leader.
Of course, yes. Yeah, but it's there.
So I will say leadership, and I'm going back to the board experience, because if you want to hear the story some other time, I will give you a very juicy board story. I took over as president, and leading volunteers where you are not giving them money, right? You are all you're giving them is a good time and maybe something they can put on their resume, but fueling that passion is very much leadership without that authority, right? It's leadership without that power. I do talk a lot about leading without power. And I will say it's really going into that, aligning on those common goals and objectives, fueling that passion, listening to what people are interested in, and supporting that growth. Parenting and leading are not 100% alike. I'm not going to say that. There's definitely no child protective services when it comes to leadership. I guess maybe that's like OSHA or something.
Yeah.
So I guess there is. You could find some similarity.
There's lawyers too, for just if you discriminate against people, right?
There you go.
And one other question, can you comment real quickly? We only have a minute left, but can you comment on dealing with micromanagers?
Yeah, micromanagers, those are your dictator leaders, right? It's everything. They're trying to control everything. So micromanagers burn out, frankly, right? They're the ones that are exasperated that the team isn't responsible, that they're not stepping up. They're always having to take control. People that are fueled by that don't want to change their leadership style. So I can't make you, right? You can't make me adult.